Hey, this is Soy Off Games. I'm Joshua. Let's talk about making games and stuff. Go. Okay, and so we're back. This week I don't want to talk as much about my games specifically. However, I do have a couple things to show you, a few little things. Really, I want to talk about things like motivation, organization, hey, that whole ball of wax, that ball of yarn, that ball of snot. I don't know. So this is going to go against probably just about anything and everything most people who do this sort of thing will tell you. And I don't know if that means that I'm headed down the wrong path, or if it just means that there's a certain type of advice. There's a certain kind of person and vibe and style when it comes to business advice or creativity advice that really permeates the internet. And it's what I think people call the hustle culture. This idea that if you want to accomplish something, if you want to succeed, you have to make your whole life about it. You have to do it 24/7. You have to eat, drink, sleep, piss, your idea, your business, your goals. And frankly, I find that really unhealthy. I think there's people out there who this advice really works for. People with a lot of energy. We all know the guy or the girl, right? That just always like a million miles an hour. And for those people that probably works. This idea of like, you gotta be in it all the time. Don't take a break. Don't stop. I'll tell you what though, for me, that does not work. And you shouldn't beat yourself up if that doesn't work for you either, because there's other ways to do this stuff, right? So for me, it's all about work-life balance. It's all about finding that correct balance for you to where you can get the most accomplished without feeling like you're killing yourself, either literally or metaphorically. So what I mean is, for example, at the time of this video, I'm just coming back from 4th of July. I'm in the middle of trying to get my first game done. I've got a lot on my plate, but at the same time, it doesn't do me or anyone else any good to work myself past the point of being productive, past the point of having a good eye for what I'm looking at, past the point of making smart decisions. So for each person, there's going to be a different spot. I can't imagine that my level of ability to handle pressure and time constraints is the same as yours, or is the same as anyone else that we might work with. My wife and I have different levels for different things. But it's important to find where you're comfortable and then work to that limit. But at the same time, it's also important not to beat yourself up if you fail to work to that limit. It's a goal. It's not a requirement, right? So I suppose what I'm getting at is that creatives, people with goals, sometimes we can push ourselves too hard to the point of being detrimental. That hustle culture has a drawback, in that when you become all about the hustle aspect, time and completion become the most important goals that you have. And completing things is good. getting things done quickly is good, but quality is better. Depth is better. Truly loving what you're doing is better. And again, if hustle culture works for you and for you it's better, cool. For me, it doesn't work. I can't do it. So instead, what I have to do is try to balance my work with my home, with recreation, with enjoyment. And for me, that works out to, frankly, a fairly normal sort of 8-hour workday kind of thing. So that's what I do. And when I'm done for the day, I try to shut it off. I stop. I move on, and I hang out with my family, and I go do things that I enjoy doing, and I try to stop thinking about the work that I do during the day. But that doesn't always happen. Case in point, and one of the reasons that I really wanted to bring this up, a little story time, I suppose. So I went out of town with family for 4th of July, and we were gone for the better part of a week. And while we were gone, we were spending time with family who live on a big old lake. We went and did some boating around. And if you have teenagers and you've ever been on a boat, you know that usually involves pulling things behind the boat with people on them, right? So we were doing some of that with my teenage kids, and allowing myself that time was great already. It was re-energizing. It was, it gave me a break, time for my mind to step away from work and think about other things so that I could come back refreshed with a new perspective. My dog's right here. So if I seem distracted, it's just because I have a dog walking around here. But one of the interesting things that happened was I had my phone out and I was doing some video of my kids on one of those big inflatable things. We were pulling on it. When we first started moving, we were moving slowly, and the line between the boat and them kept going slack and then tight, slack and tight. And by watching this on my phone, it made me think about things being tethered together and how they snap apart and can pull. And basically, I came up with a whole new mechanic for my game. Now, at this stage in Touchy Touch, where I'm starting to really just churn out levels, I don't know for sure that this mechanic will end up in the game. Give me just a moment here. I'm probably going to pause this for just a second. I'm going to jump cut, and I'm going to show you sort of the basic concept of this mechanic, just to show you, just to illustrate my point. So give me just a moment. Okay, I'm back. For you, I know it's just a direct jump, but for me, I had to go, whatever, you get it. It's YouTube, it's a video. Okay, so here we go. Here's the new little thing I was thinking. As you can see, they're like, I've got this, right? That takes them and puts them, like tethers them together. Now, I don't have a whole thing yet. I'm just playing around with the idea, but my thought is maybe, I can connect these up, and if they break the plane of something else, they'll snap apart and go back to where they started. It's a tall order. It requires some things, I think, like ray casting that I'm not super familiar with and good at. I tried watching some tutorials on it. I think I get the idea. So I might put this in there as a later stage mechanic, but even if it doesn't, look, here's my point. Put this away, put it away. Okay. So here's my point. Stepping away gave me perspective. It gave me time to think about other things and set this aside. And so doing that gave me new thoughts. new ideas, new experiences to relate to. And in doing that, I have a potential new thing. And even if I don't, I've learned something new about development in the process. I've improved my skills a little bit. So it was worth it. I suppose what my point here is that if you just make your whole thing, if you dive too deep, you can get lost in the forest, right? You stop being able to see the trees. Or maybe the better metaphor would be to reverse it. You get lost in the trees and forget you're in a forest. I don't know. One of the two. I guess it works both ways. But you lose the big picture, or you can lose the small picture, or maybe you lose a little bit of both, right? My point being that if there's no work-life balance, if you have no life outside of work, your work becomes life. And when your work is life, that becomes reflected in the end product. You ever seen a band or heard a band where they get a couple albums in and then all their songs start becoming about being rich and famous, or being a rock star or a musician or touring on the road? It's because their whole life becomes their work, and then their work becomes about their work. They become so focused in on what they do, they lose track of the bigger picture, they lose track of the bigger narrative. So don't fall into this trap, either in terms of destroying the connection that you have with the audience by becoming too inside of the work, to where you lose what's this look like to other people, but also just so you don't get lost in the depth of the weeds and lose track of making something cool for making something functional. And you can only tell if what you're doing is cool and not just functional by taking some time away from it. At least I can. That's the only way I can do it. So that's my main piece of advice to a younger person trying to get into this, or hell, even somebody my age. But I think it's something that maybe takes some time, some failure in life to understand. So take it from me. Who am I? Nobody. But hustle culture isn't the only way to do this stuff. So, however, with that understanding in mind, you also have to know that if you want to structure and create a balance, you have to work at that too. It's work-life balance. Some people make the mistake of thinking a work-life balance means life with a little work. And that's just not what it means, right? It's a work-life balance. You find the balance where you can get the most work done and still have a life, still be someone that isn't just the thing you do for a living, or the thing, it's okay to have passions, but you shouldn't let your passions become you. So you have to have plan, you have to have structure, and you have to be willing to stick to that plan and hold to that structure, or at least know when it needs to be modified and do so with structure. So let me show you something else here that I've been working on to help facilitate that with my own work. And you know what? Give me just a moment. Same as before. I'll be right back. Okay, so here on the screen, this is Milanote, by the way. I recommend anybody who's trying to do this kind of thing, find something like this that works for you. It doesn't have to be Milanote. I think Milanote's great. Milanote, if you want to sponsor some small guy, hey, hi. I doubt it. But anyway, so I was finding that while creating levels and building my game, it was becoming unwieldy, hard to figure out what I've already done and where I wanted to go. I have ideas for all these different levels to make, but I wasn't sure what to make next. So I built myself a level guide. And what this does is each time I make a new level, I screenshot it, I add it to my level guide. Right now I've got 20 levels built. I add it to my level guide and I explain the purpose of the level. If you're putting levels into a video game and the level doesn't have a purpose, you don't know what it's trying to do, what it is that you're trying to test the player on, what challenge you're giving them, or what they're supposed to learn, frankly, in my opinion, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. So that's where I'm at. So let me zoom in a little and I'm going to show you specific levels and sort of how this is built, right? Or like, so you can get a better eye on this. So to the left here, I have everything separated out into what's essentially stages, groups of 5. And then what I've done is just, again, sort of described each of these levels. So let me zoom even further. Here we go. Level 1, intro to movement, right? So at first, I just want to show people how to move things, which one moves, which one doesn't, that you slide one to the other. This is the only level where I have any tutorial happening. All my other levels, there is no guidance. But this first one, just the very basic concept of touch this, move it here, is directly in the game. Level 2, I introduce the idea of more than one color. Level 3 is the first time you have to use both hands and probably have to set the tablet down. So something with playtesting I noticed is people initially want to hold a tablet while they play a game. And in my game, you really do have to set it on a table. And so level 3 just sort of makes that obvious by putting the orbs that you got to do all the way in the opposite corners, so you can't really get there, and putting the goals just far enough apart that theoretically, I guess someone with huge hands could do it, but most people aren't going to be able to. Level 4, I introduce a new mechanic, which is the spark. You got to touch it for the goals to appear. By the way, the circle is the orb that moves, and the squares are the goals where you can move them to win. One thing you'll notice is as my levels progress, I shrink the goals down. I think that is working. We'll see. I'll have to play test more and see if starting with bigger goals and then slowly shrinking them down to the size you would expect them to be is a good idea. Level 5, I reintroduce the spark a second time, but with multiple colors to show that it does all the colors the same way. And then I move into stage 2, where I now show that there can also be green. There's more colors. I show how you have to sometimes lift your fingers up. During playtesting with family members, I noticed that a lot of people were afraid to pick their finger up and let the orb go back to where it began. They felt like they were failing. So I wanted to show that sometimes that's just required. You have to do that in order to move on. So they do the blue, and then they're inevitably going to take their other finger to do the red one on their other hand. Almost everybody does it this way, and then the green one shows up. So when the green appears, then they realize, oh, I have to do it differently, right? So I'm sort of slowly teaching people how to play the game, basically. For level 8, I sort of show the idea of touching the orb to the goal to make the next one appear without staying there, which is kind of like lifting, but slightly different. When you finally get a chance to play a demo or something, you'll see what I mean. So level 9 and level 10, I actually just further reinforce concepts, and they're just sort of free levels to play around with a little bit with what you've learned so far. So the next set, I add yellow and I bring the spark back as well. So in, for example, level 11 here, you actually have to do the spark and the red with the same hand in order to achieve your goal. Then we add yellow. We cross some things around each other. We play around. So these are just for fun. 4 fingers with one hand because your spark is all the way over here. So again, I'm teaching all the different ways that you might want to manipulate before I just totally let everybody loose and give them all sorts of complicated, weird solutions. And then I add the mechanic of the moving goal. When you hit the first one, it moves to the second one, and you can't go to it without, you can't let go, or else it starts over and goes back to 1. So then I sort of add the spark. So again, I'm adding all these things together to slowly learn over time. But the important thing here, I suppose, that I'm trying to say is I needed to organize. I needed to see, okay, let's drop this. Away it goes. All right. I needed to be able to visually see where I was at, what I was doing, and give myself an easier way to move forward when I do sit down to work. If you don't find yourself organizing at the beginning, you're going to have harder time later on, is what I've learned. So let me show you something else. So I'll be right back again. Okay. So here we go. This is actually just an app called Notepads. It's by Jackie Liu. You can get it in the Microsoft store for free. I highly recommend it. It's like Notepad++, but frankly, I think it's cleaner and simpler for basic stuff even than Notepad++, which I also love, and if that's what you prefer, use that. But okay, so this is actually just my script as it stands so far. So at the end of each level, I have dialogue that sort of helps ground the game in some sort of reality, sort of I hope that it pulls the player in to what we're doing. And so I have this script that I'm writing, and the trouble is, as I move levels around, the script is built into the levels and it gets awkward and I lose track of what's where. So what I'm doing is I'm actually building this script outside of the game, and as I concrete the levels, right, as I decide like, okay, these are definitely, this is level 1, this is level 2, I'll go in and I'll drop the script in at the end. So as you beat the level, the next bit of dialogue comes up and it will follow my natural script that I have. In the meantime, while I'm building the levels and doing all that, I'm just sort of leaving them with what I had so far or blank. And then I'll come back to this. But this gives me the ability to take a break and work on script whenever I want, basically, instead of having to sort of do it all as one piece. So let me get that off the screen. So yeah, ultimately, I think my point today is simply that everybody has a different speed and level and amount at which they're comfortable getting things done. And don't beat yourself up because you're not moving at the same speed that someone else might. Or don't get too discouraged if you're not reaching your own goals or getting as much done as you thought you would. That's just not, it's not feasible. It's not how it works. But at the opposite end of that spectrum, you also have to make sure that you're holding yourself accountable, and that you're giving yourself the best chance to succeed. That, for me, that means not diving too deep, too fast, because I will burn out. And it means finding that healthy balance. So for you, it might be a different balance. For me, I feel like I've found pretty much what works. But it's still not perfect. I still Yesterday was a Monday coming back from vacation. I think I did 45 minutes of work yesterday. I started the day wanting to do 6 to 8 hours. I got onto my computer, and you know what? I just ended up mostly putzing around, looking at Reddit, playing a video game, Diablo 4, for a little bit. And I could beat myself up about it and say, hey, you should have done more, you should have gotten more accomplished. Or I can understand that it was my first day back from a long vacation and I wasn't ready to work yet. And sitting down and doing just a little bit, I sat down at my computer, I pulled up my work like I was going to work, and I did a little bit. It wasn't what I wanted to do, but I got something done. I moved forward a bit. And that time off that I had refreshed me and gave me some new ideas. And today, here I am working. I'm doing a video, and I'm going to get some work done, and we're going to move forward. So that's my advice today. Keep moving forward. And otherwise, do the thing, push all the buttons, it's all like red stuff down there with the bells and thumbs up and likes and comments. But yeah, what do you do to stay motivated? What do you do to stay organized? You got any tips? Got any tips for me? Got any tips for anybody else watching this? Put it in the comments. How do you stay motivated and organized? Otherwise, see y'all. I'll be back in a few weeks to show you some more. Bye now.